Welcome to Relics Radio, your favorite weekly podcast dedicated to the metal detecting and treasure hunting community. Here are your hosts, Ken from Adventures in Dirt and Tony from 5280 Adventures.
Hey, welcome to another Thursday night here at Relics Radio. I want to welcome everyone joining us over my YouTube channel, at Tony's YouTube channel, over on some Facebook pages. We're glad you're here. Welcome to you to join us for another Thursday night. Man, it's been an awesome week. I can't wait to talk to my co-host tonight. You know him as 5280 Adventures. Look at that. He's there all of a sudden. Oof.
Magic of video, huh? I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing good.
Glad to be back on Relics Radio. Holy cow. We've taken some time off, personal things, and man, just life happens. But I got to tell you, I woke up this morning and I said, it's Thursday. I've missed like being live and talking with you, talking with an incredible guest also, but missing the people in the chat and just kind of the whole interaction here. I'm ready, man.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. It always feels something's missing, right? Whenever we don't do a show. And
it's rough.
Yeah. Glad to be back for sure.
Yeah.
I was looking in the chat. There were some people rolling in. Early. I see Larry Stevens. How you doing, Larry? Bill Hayes. Bill Hayes coming in. How you doing, Bill? Good to see you. E-Tector in the house. Good to see you. People are just rolling in. Full Metal Digger. How you doing, Dave?
Look at that.
Hey, Barks detecting bits. Look at that. welcome. I don't know if we've seen that in the chat.
That might be a new one there.
Hey, welcome.
Good to have you, Barks.
Yep.
We got Georgia Buddy coming on.
Georgia Buddy. We were just talking about him.
Yeah.
And our trips to England with him.
We might get into some England information, topics, finds, and stories tonight.
Yep. Detect South Dakota. Boy.
Hey.
The generous person that took our friend out is up there.
Yeah. And we can formally now say thank you for opening things up. We reached out to people and said, hey, we've got a buddy going up to South Dakota. Anybody available? And Detect SD popped up, said, absolutely. Give me the info. They went out, had a great time, found some good stuff. So outstanding community. Thanks, Detect SD.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thin Blue Diggers.
Look at that. Nick, welcome on, Nick.
Blue Diggers.
Let's
Blue Diggers.
Let's see here. I wanted to get into something real quick here. I just want to let you guys know that tonight's Relics Radio episode is brought to you from Nick's Custom Laser Engraving. This is Nick, and he does custom engraving. He sent us over some cool hats. He does coasters. I've seen Christmas tree ornaments, and he pretty much does anything that you want to do custom for you guys. So if you guys want some incredible stuff, make sure that you head over and get a hold of Nick at Nick's Custom Laser Engraving. Contact him over at the email on the screen there. It's also in the description. So thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Hey, Nick. Yeah, we definitely appreciate it, man. Welcome. Metal Diggers. Look at that. Metal Diggers in the house. Heavy Metal Detectors, Kentucky. Good to see you. Dave Crookshanks joining us. Bucko Boy is here. Welcome, everyone. It's good to be back on the air with you. Shoot, how's the week been, Tony? You did some duck hunting.
Yeah, got on some birds. A couple weeks ago, dove opener, did pretty well out there, and went and did teal. Early teal season was last weekend in the opener, and we did pretty decent out there, and got some meat in the freezer. Actually, just I've been soaking it. You want to soak it, and I soak it in salt water. It kind of pulls out all the blood, and I just filleted everything up, threw it in the freezer. So I've got some meat in the freezer now. And I tell you, if you guys haven't had dove poppers before, make friends with a bird hunter, ask them for jalapeno dove poppers. And I tell you, you guys will, once you go that way, it's incredible. So been busy doing that over the weekend and stuff. So
yeah, it looks like a good time.
Yeah, what have you been up to, man? You've been doing some research.
Yeah, a lot of research, a lot of making some great connections. Um, yeah, I've been doing a lot of research, man. Falling right down the rabbit hole like we talk about all the time. I've actually made some great connections actually with some local archaeologists,
Ooh.
which is kind of interesting because, that's not always a great partnership, right? I
Right.
mean, it's been
We
a
were talking
strained
about
relationship.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
We're trying to work that angle and increase some friendships and some contacts with some people that
yeah.
maybe are just a little bit on the outside of like the metal detecting community, but
Yeah.
like you and I talked about, it could really open up some incredible opportunities for us to find history, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about, finding history. It may not necessarily be uh, something that we can put in the treasure, display case, because most of it's gonna be all declared to the archaeologist. But to dig up something that's realistically historical, man, what an opportunity. So
And help tell that story too. You help tell the story, discover. I mean, you and I both have been involved with projects with archaeologists that have helped
yep,
establish history that was
yeah,
previously unknown. So that's always cool. That was one of my biggest thrills is that project. And it all depends on the project. Some archaeologists have an opportunity for metal detectors come in, and some
right,
don't. Some want to use sort of big equipment and stuff. So to do different types of scanning and stuff. But
right.
yeah. Hey, let's bring our
Good.
guest on. I'm looking forward to talking with Rob all week.
All right, let's get to our guest.
Hey, it's Rob.
Rob Rizzo.
How you doing, man?
Evening, gentlemen. How's it going?
It's
Uh,
great.
Doing great tonight. Yeah, like Tony said, we've been off, and just feels good always to get back into things. Are you like that, Rob, with like making videos? Like, do you take a break for a little while, and then when you get back into it, you're like, oh yeah, this feels good to get back into
Yeah,
making some
absolutely.
videos.
I think you need to mix it up. You need to sharpen the saw. But I was really pumped. I've been on a few of these podcasts. They're always fun, but this is the only podcast that has the same initials as my name.
It does. It gets you one of these hats. You're like, it stands
There
for
you
Rob
go.
Rizzo.
No,
There
that's
you
the Rob
go.
Rizzo podcast. Look
That's
at
it.
Yeah, but no, I like to mix it up, but I can always talk about metal detecting, treasure hunting, right?
right.
I think a lot of folks probably feel the same way.
You're in the right place. You're amongst friends. Excellent. Well, where are you, Rob? Where in the country are you? Are you East Coast, West Coast? Whereabouts are you?
I am Midwest. I'm located in the state of Wisconsin. So I live in a town which I believe it's the only town in America that has 5 O's in its name, Oconomowoc. So I'm South Central. I'm between the city of Milwaukee, which is on Lake Michigan, and Madison, which is our state capital. So nice in many respects because it's easy to get to and from certain places, challenging in others. We don't have the same history that maybe they have in the Northeast, but we have a lot of copper culture here,
Yeah.
which is also kind of unique.
Very unique. If you watch some of our previous guests just recently, as a matter of fact, 2 or 3 back and maybe 4 or 5 back, we've talked a lot about copper culture and
Yeah.
fur trade. And boy, we've had a couple of really great guests on that specialize in that. You know what I mean? That's
Oh my,
another
well,
rabbit hole you can go down.
I think I've detected with a few of them. So Jeff Klajorian, I think, and Dave Rose were on here with Tim
Yeah.
Blank, and they've had some great. In fact, I was real close, a few feet away from Jeff when he found this incredible point that the Milwaukee Museum dated. I mean, it's so old. It's older than the stuff many of us find over in the UK and in England.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
just a smidgen of Civil War stuff here. Not much. There wasn't much activity, in Wisconsin, but we've got a lot of old home sites and homesteads. So we'll pop some large cents occasionally and 2-cent pieces, stuff like that.
What I really like about Wisconsin is, generally the people know the history of the United States. You've got the Rev War, Civil War on the East Coast. You've got the expansion out to the West, to where Ken and I are in Colorado. It almost feels like Wisconsin gets passed over, but like Ken said, the guests we've had on talk about copper culture. Holy cow. That is something that Ken and I really have a big interest in now, because it's something that people just don't talk enough about, but what an incredible spot for history.
Yeah. And of course, we have beach hunting. They're not coastal beaches, but we have a lot of freshwater lakes. And I will say our soil here is pretty friendly to artifacts as well. One person, I don't know if you've ever had him on your show, but Michael Heim, he's the preacher digger.
Yeah.
I've connected a couple of times, and he used to travel through the state, on business. And, in fact, he's got several videos of detecting with his buddy, but he always comments when he sees my videos, how rich and dark the earth is here. And I don't know, I think it's kind of cool. You go down to North Carolina, South Carolina, you get that sugar sand, or you go out to Arizona, it's a completely different soil type. But no, by and large, it's a great town. And it's a great state if you're a sports fan as well. We got some great sport accomplishments to talk about as well.
Yeah, we do. We do. Yeah, we've had Michael on a lot. Matter of fact, this last Friday, Michael came on and spoke to our metal detecting group here in Colorado, the Eureka Treasure Hunters Club. And he came on. He was our guest speaker this month. Came on, talked all about water digging and England and a bunch of other stuff. And we've had him on this show numerous times. I've been to England with him twice. So, yeah, we know Mike pretty well. And he's a great guy. So how does the soil there in Wisconsin treat your relics? Because I know here in Colorado, right, Tony, like it treats it. We got a little bit of loamy soil here, and and with the pine needle, especially if you're in an area where you get a lot of pine needle drop, it treats, oh my gosh, I pulled the eagle button. That was just the most pristine thing you've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've even had some people in the UK question this, but our silver here, first of all, our silver, just like yours, it's not that old. I mean, you're popping stuff often from 1800s, and if it's in the dirt, I mean, it's smiling at you, coming out. It might be worn, but it's going to be shiny as the day it was minted. Now in the water, that's going to be completely different. I've pulled some black silver out of the water, but we do. Our winters can be tough, and the ground does freeze. But most of the stuff that I find, I dig home sites, I dig farms, I dig parks, I dig beaches. I dig.
Right.
And excluding the fields, of course, you never know how deep something originally was. But most of these things, they're often only 6 to 8 inches down. A lot of the stuff that we find. I mean, of course, the detectors go much deeper than that, right? But no, it treats the stuff pretty well, I think, compared to other places that I've seen. And I will say, we'll probably talk about the UK here in a little bit, but northern England versus southern England, completely different soil types there, and has a totally different effect on the artifacts there as well.
Yeah, it also depends here where you're detecting too, whether they fertilize the fields, because sometimes that stuff can be very acidic. And but yeah, if you get up in the mountains, the foothills,
Yeah, I popped. No, this was a home site. It happened to be the first home site in the town in which I lived. So we're talking, it was probably settled 1840s, and probably did not, have any kind of fertilizer, at least a lot of it on the property. But boy, I tell you, the house was sold. The city bought it, converted it into a park, and they allow metal detecting. And I popped a large scent out of there. And at first glance, it was caked. It had some light dust on it. Oh my gosh, did this thing clean up well? And all I did was soak it in some olive oil, hit it a little bit with some Andres pencils. And man, I'm telling you, had that beautiful kind of greenish patina to it. But yeah, the stuff comes up looking pretty good here.
Yeah.
That's great.
I would love to find a large scent around here, right? We're just not finding those in Colorado.
Yeah. A little tough to find them.
I haven't found, many of them. I have found a total of 3. And of course, my Northeast buddies, like they dig them all the time, you know. Yeah.
They're like weed pennies to them.
Oh yeah. But no,
I had to go to Ohio to
okay.
get my
They don't have
my
anything
large.
left in Ohio. Are you kidding me?
I know.
Buckleboy just said that he's heard that there's nothing left in Ohio. Everyone's
say
always
that
telling us stay away from Ohio. It's not the best kept secret in detecting. Just it's all gone there. No one needs to go there.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I have my days, but I still think there's so many places to detect. You just got to kind of think a little out of the box and think differently to get some permissions.
Agreed. Yeah, you have to think differently. This is, if you talk about the difference from the 70s and 80s and how people could just go to those parks and come home with 10 silvers. It's not like that anymore. And a lot of us now, in 20, 30 years later, our machines are a little bit better than the ones previously, but everything has been hit. The easy stuff has pretty much been picked up. So you have to think out of the box to get those extra permissions.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of respect for the folks that I'll put them in the category of like they're map researchers. Okay, I'm going to use an old plat map. I'm going to find a site. There's no structure there, and that takes a lot of effort. And they produce, right? But I'll share with you all and those listening. I mean, this is one of the things I've done. I have a video on this as well on my channel, but this has helped me quite a bit. But I will go on to one of the popular real estate sites, an app. You're probably familiar with realtor.com, and search for homes not for sale, but homes that have already sold, right? And they have a filter there that you can also apply. So I'm looking at homes that have recently sold over 100 years old. And at that point, I'm scanning for acreage, and this is a little bit of art now. If it's highly manicured, very well landscaped, that won't be at the top of my list.
Right.
Right.
But what I then do is, I have a little packet that I mail or I drop off, okay, for a property that I'm really excited about. I'll go onto the county GIS system or the tax records, and I'll get the owner's names. But often I just address it property owner. And, my little letter is, hey, I'm a part-time historian, a metal detectorist, came across your property. I have this YouTube channel. I mentioned that to try to get a little bit of credibility. And the reason I'm contacting you, and I go into my pitch, and I offer to split the fines with them, although they can keep whatever they want. And I actually include a self-addressed stamped envelope.
Yep. Sure.
Now, I've been told, I think most people would probably agree, if you do any kind of direct mail, you only generally get about a 1% response rate. But I get about a 10%, like, contact me. And that normally, I'll do this late winter, early spring, and it kind of sets me up for the year, to be honest with you. It works quite well. If anybody's interested, email me or just check out my video online. I go through what I do in detail. Might work for you, might not, but it does for me.
Do you find yourself doing that direct mail more than door knocking?
I do for two reasons. I kind of got into that when I was during COVID.
Sure. Yeah.
Everybody was like, "Oh, don't knock on the door." But I have to confess, it's easy. Probably being a little lazy, and but I will door knock. But I haven't had to, and what I'm getting now is I also normally get out of, let's say, every 3 of these, I kind of also get a referral of, hey, you think my yard was good? You should talk to Sally down the street, and But I do door knock, but I still think and it works. But I mean, I'm sticking with this so far because I can do it over the winter, and I can allow some time to transpire. So I can have that working. Whereas door knocking, you may or may not, if you want to detect that day, you may or may not.
Right.
Yeah, I've had great success with that in the past. And here's the thing with that, Rob, like, you can cover much more ground doing that.
Sure.
you can sit at a computer for a few hours and come up with, 20 potential targets that you can send out these letters to with these returned address envelopes. And versus, maybe in an area like, oh, I found this old, bunch of homes in this old town. And instead of me spending the time going there, walking door to door, knocking, which is always, people always recommend you get face to face. And I get that. And that absolutely is great.
Yeah.
But if you're getting that kind of return, that means you have a nice letter, you're
Yeah.
presenting yourself well. Why not? I think it was Zach, right? Tony was telling us like he can sit there and
Zach's
do it
had tremendous.
all across multiple states. He can do this
Yeah.
if it's a target area that he wants to go to.
Well, here's the other thing. So I'm retired. My wife and I have a small RV. I have a separate YouTube channel. If anybody wants to check that out, it's called Beyond the Adventure. We own a Class B RV. These are like the Sprinter vans, the Amazon vans that come up and deliver packages. So, we'll go to a fair amount of either RV rallies, but a lot of these regional metal detecting events. Okay? So Digstock down in North Carolina, I was at a relic hunt down in Texas. And of course, I know a couple months in advance that these things are happening. So what I do is also look for stuff in those areas, either for prior to or after like that event. So yeah, so you can, I can't go door knocking in advance, right? So that works quite well.
Yeah. Great tip. Great tip.
Yeah.
I
wanted to, I just wanted to point out there, you had it up there, Bruce Ratkowski. I don't know if Bruce, you're familiar with Bruce. Yeah. He says, I had my best silver day when Robin and Chief at a Boy Scout camp. Also, Rob put me on my very first silver 1875 seated quarter. So
what a first silver.
That's awesome.
Okay. He's going to hear this. Like, there's nothing I can do about it, but Bruce is actually one of my best finds. So, he's going to go.
I can relate.
But no, I'm on a beach down in Milwaukee a couple years ago, and you know how it is. You see another detectorist, and you make eye contact. Hey, how you doing? You have any luck? So we've become really good friends, along with his brother-in-law Tom, and in fact, the three of us. Bruce had a permission down outside of Manassas this spring that we were so excited about. Again, Wisconsin boys, not a lot of Civil War activity.
Right.
And we were down there, I think, for 3 days, I think, Bruce, right? And there was rumored to be a ford, a river crossing that both armies used. This is just outside of Manassas, not within the battlefield. And but it wasn't definitive. And sure enough, we found multiple artifacts, a Union Army button, a cleaner bullet, which is a fascinating item.
Yeah,
and
great.
But again, it came that actually the initial property we went to kind of was a bust. But that individual knew we were traveling, caught up some friends nearby, and sure enough, oh my God, we found this incredible property, had a great time. But yeah, what I love about the hobby, right? You can do it by yourself. Many of us do, but it's also, I think I enjoy detecting with friends. And we also here, we have a habit, if the property will support it, we'll share our permissions. I'll invite some buddies. I mean, you guys probably do that too, I'm guessing, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, we got in touch with a YouTuber, a smaller YouTuber who we just found on YouTube, who's in Northern Colorado. Reached out to him, and we started metal detecting with him, using permissions and sharing, and just really hooking up on weekends and things like that. He was exclusively by himself, very secluded, solo by myself. The camera, right in the face, kind of looking around, not sharing finds with anybody. And now that we've all hunted together, he's like, I don't even want to go out by myself anymore. I won't go out unless we're all going together on these different sites, because there's nothing better than sharing that in that excitement, because we all have that same passion, and you can get to share it with somebody. It makes it even better.
He said, I can't believe how much fun I had digging with you guys.
Right.
Like, he goes, I don't know what I was doing digging by myself all this time. And And that's cool. And it's the truth, man.
It really is. And I mean, we have a local club we're part of as well. And so there's like a whole ecosystem. I mean, I truly mean that. I mean, I think that's, for me, that's one of the best parts about the hobby. That, and of course, uncovering the history of the items. And
right.
But just before we leave the permission thing, I mean, I would encourage people to, Buckle Boy's right. I mean, a lot of these places have probably been hit, but also don't fall into the practice of assuming that every place has been hit. It was a couple years ago, you know, in addition to looking for old private farms and residences, I'm looking for historical properties as well.
Right.
And many of you are probably familiar with, you remember the TV show Little House on the Prairie?
Yeah,
sure.
That's based on the story by Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House in the Big Woods, and so on. Well, that actually, the TV show and the Little House in the Big Woods is actually based off of a home site in Pepin, Wisconsin.
Oh, really?
Right? So I wrote to the curator. They have a little Laura Ingalls Wilder museum there. Honestly, thinking I didn't have a shot. Oh, somebody's probably already hit this. They won't. And I said, hey, you know, would you all be willing to let me and some of my friends come and detect there? We went up there for a weekend and found stuff that directly tied to Pa Ingalls and Ma and Laura. And we had a wonderful time and donated all that stuff, by the way, to the local museum. It's in the museum up there. But
right.
When I finally, you know, contacted them and started talking with them, the curator said, yeah, we're kind of surprised nobody ever asked.
Wow.
So don't necessarily assume it's all hunted out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And even like, you know, Zach Bird, even I remember him one time, he did a video where he was like, don't ever give up.
Mm-hmm.
Even no's can turn into a yes someday. He knocked on this property owner. He's like, get the heck out of here, you know, and then some other time, you know, he waited a few months, come back, and he said, hey, I know you said no last time. I just check and see if you changed your mind. And pretty soon this guy got to know Zach. And then, you know, pretty soon the no became a yes. Because he was
don't ever give up too once you start. I mean, I had this beautiful old house built in the 1840s. I mean, like 3 blocks from where I live right now. And currently it's a bed and breakfast. And I actually dropped off one of my packets, met the owner, the innkeeper at the time. So it was kind of a combination packet door knock, I guess you could say. And he gives me permission to metal detect, and I'm so excited. But it kind of falls in that category of, I think the property has had a lot of facelifts over the years, you know, new dirt brought in and so on. I was so excited. I went out the first day and I found nothing. Went back a second day, nothing. And the third day, I think I took a different machine. It had rained the night before. The variables changed, you know. And oh my gosh, I found this beautiful mid-1800s women's watch fob, sterling and sapphire, that is just gorgeous, just gorgeous. It was only like 4 inches down, right? And could have easily left after that first day or the second day. So I don't know. I think sometimes, you know, there isn't a button on our detectors called persistence, but you know, if there is, it's up here.
Yeah, for sure. Even like, who was it? We've done shows on here about getting permissions, and I think it was James we had last time. The whole show was just around getting permissions. It's a good show, but he was just like, when he knocks on the door, he has all these tips, right? Tony and I used some of the tips, so we got a really big permission like the very following weekend, you know. But he was talking about, he steps off the porch, he takes off his hat when they come to the door, and then he said he just doesn't let them get a word in. He's constantly addressing the no's he thinks he might get, you know what I mean? And kind of just going and going, and pretty soon you see them start shaking their head. And
if you get a no, you know, ask them, say, hey, okay, can I ask you why you said no? You know, and that's like this packet I'm talking about in the letter. Oh my gosh, I think I'm on my like 10th version of it because of some of the feedback. You know, and actually there was one permission I was on. And you know how this goes. Sometimes the owners are interested, they're curious, and they're talking to you. And at one point, I felt comfortable enough. I just said, hey, but But by the way, any feedback or comments, anything about the letter that I sent you? He said, no, but my girlfriend said I was crazy to let you come here. And I said, can I ask you why? What is it? And she said, well, how do you know he's not going to keep something if he finds something really nice? And she had a couple other things. It basically fell in the category of trust. So what I try to do to minimize that, when you can't completely do it when you're just sending a letter, right?
Yeah.
Or even knocking on the door. But I actually in my letter mentioned that I'm a retired IT professional. I actually include my LinkedIn profile. I have some pictures of some of my recent finds and some strategically selected video thumbnails where I show that I do ring returns. And all I'm trying to do is chip away.
Build trust.
Chip away at the trust thing. So anyway, a lot of I would encourage. There's some really good videos out there. I didn't invent. I mean, I learned from you guys, from a lot of these folks. But I think that the single thing is you just got to get over. If they say no, big deal. Big deal. Yeah. Move on to the next one.
Yeah, there's plenty out there. You know what I mean? And then once you do a few, right, you get kind of used to it, and you kind of get your chops underneath you, and eventually you'll get a feel for it for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what, Rob? We didn't actually do this. We should have done this right at the beginning of the show. But why don't you tell people who you are and kind of what you're into about your social media stuff out there? There might be people listening later on the audio or podcast or even in the chat that might not know who you are. How about a quick introduction? Talk about your social media. We'll put some of your links up. How about that? Let's do that.
Yeah. So again, my name's Rob Rizzo, right? Easy to remember, the RR because of the Relic Radio. But online, you can find me as the History Digger. I'm on YouTube is probably my biggest social media platform. I've been out there for a while. I think I have like 8,000 subscribers, something like that. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. I don't do TikTok, but those are my primary things that I'm on. And I primarily do detecting. I do all kind of land detecting. I do some water detecting. I do some scuba diving, although nowhere near as much as the gentleman we were talking about, Michael, and others, Chig, and so forth. And I have swung a bunch of different detectors. So my go-tos right now, I love my XP Deus 2. I have had a little bit of a dalliance with the MindLab Manicore, and I do like that machine, especially with this new 9-inch coil. But I've got my own little personal rule is to never have more than 3. I don't want to be a metal detector collector. I know many of you are. But I do have the Deus 2, the full one. And if you're not familiar with it, they have a something called the WS6 Master that's a round puck that it's basically, there's a few features, a few things it won't do in terms of just settings. Performance-wise, it's exactly the same as the full Deus 2. It's just not waterproof, okay? So when I travel, I take those two, it's the same platform, one's a backup and so on, but I do swing the Manicore as well. And the last thing I'll say is the reason I do all the social media stuff, it does help me get permissions, but I really enjoy capturing, preserving, and telling the story, of the history. I do have some instructional videos, about the machines, how to program certain things. But there are plenty of folks that do that, and they do that quite well. I tend to focus a little bit more on the story and try to educate either about the artifact that I found, the location I'm detecting, something like that. But last thing I'll say is I'm retired. I worked in information technology for many years, and retired. Gosh, I'm coming up on 3 years now. So it's wonderful to have the time to go to some other places and detect, but that's me.
Yeah. Very good. And if you get a chance, go over and head over to Rob's YouTube channel and check out some of these videos. What's a cool feature of YouTube is you can actually go up at the top and there's a little magnifying glass and you can actually do a search. So if you do a search there over at Rob's channel, you can put in stuff like permissions and find all of his videos where he talks about permissions. You can do like England, go find all his videos about his trips over to England. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And in pretty much anything you're looking for. You know, Manicore, stuff about the Manicore will come up. Deus 2, stuff about the Deus 2 will come up. So that's a really cool feature. And we put all of Rob's links in the chat, but they're also right down below in the description of this video. And I encourage you to go check out all of his social media. And even for those listening on the replay, you can go down in the description of the audio podcast and find all of Rob's links.
Yeah, people also, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but the channel most of them have these things called playlists. And what they are is just a way to kind of organize the videos. So I've got a couple playlists around, if all you want to see is the historic properties that I've hit, you can do that. If you just want to see some instructional videos, you can just see that. If you're only interested in a certain machine, right? So when you go on someone's channel, I think there's also a drop down somewhere where it says playlists. And if you want to, because there's a lot of folks out there, but you know, and also, you know, both YouTube and Instagram offer these other things. They call them different things, but they're reels or shorts. So, you know, the YouTube video is going to be horizontal. The reels and the shorts are going to be vertical, and they're either going to be 60 to 90 seconds. So that's interesting because a lot of folks just click on the videos. And if you see a video, it's going to be widescreen and it's going to be a little longer. But if you're like some people and you're busy, you just don't have the time,
right? These
channels offer something called shorts. There you go, Ken. And
swipe.
It's quite the challenge though, because you have to condense all this blah, 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 you know, down into 60 seconds, and some of them can be really cool.
Yeah, they can. Some people do that really well. I know I don't do it too well, but Tony's been creating some really creative short reels lately that are quite funny and, you know, poke fun at our own, you know, passions and addictions here with the metal detecting.
Oh, I mean, it's, you know, I always tell people, because I've had a couple people, and I see some people have been subscribed to me for a while. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I see that in the comments, but I think it's important to ask yourself, you know, why? You know, why do you do this? And I started out doing it, honestly, to share stories with my grandkids. You know, okay?
Sure.
Some of them don't live as close as, you know, I would like. And then I realized, hey, this can help me build some credibility and trust to get some permissions and so on. There are some people, I'm going to tell you, that do it for the money. And, you know, you guys are all probably familiar. I love this meme. It's one of my favorite metal detecting memes. But I think you could apply it to YouTube as well. And it's this cartoon of this, you know, this father giving his son his first metal detector. And the boy's like, oh my God. And the caption says, "Dad, can you become a millionaire metal detecting?" And the dad says, "Yes, you can, son, if you start out as a billionaire." But
I like that.
Isn't that the truth? But, you know, YouTube, I mean, you really have to have a lot of subscribers, you know, and because a lot of people think, oh, YouTubers are over. You know, let me tell you, first of all, everything I make, which isn't a ton, for the first several years, I donated it to the Wounded Warriors Project. This year, I'm supporting Tunnel to Towers, you know. But, you know, I'm just telling you, the people that do this, you probably don't realize how much time and effort goes into it. And very, very few people in our genre are, you know, you need like, you know, 15, 20,000 subscribers before you're actually making any kind of, you know, decent money.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you're not going to get rich by doing it, unfortunately. So, you know, it can help pay for gas. It can pay for some equipment, things like that. But in terms of time, metal detecting, recording, editing, uploading, keeping up on social media, you're not going to cover the cost of that, obviously.
No. But boy, I'll tell you
what. But it's still fun.
It can make you a better detector because, you know, that editing, you know, and it can be humbling. You're watching yourself and you realize, oh my God, I'm swinging like this, you know.
Yeah, right.
Versus, you know.
What was I doing? Yeah. And I used to be in the parks. I don't hunt parks much anymore, but people always ask me, hey, what are you finding? What's going on? What are you looking for? And I'm like, I'm just becoming a millionaire very, very slowly. Very slowly.
One nail at a time.
Very slowly.
Actually, talking about like social media and YouTube and stuff, Rob, have you ever been recognized when you're out detecting? Anybody come up to you and say, "Oh my God, you're the history digger. I watch all of your videos." Does anybody ever say that to you?
It's happened to me once on a beach and once on a plane. But my wife was pretty certain that they were confusing me with somebody else. I don't know.
So nice of her.
I know. She was, no, they really can't. Yeah. No, so at events, at some of the events you do.
Sure. Yeah.
But we just had a really good one not far from us, Chicago Dig Fest. John Ramoska and Al and those guys. And boy, I'll tell you, if you guys, let me just zoom out for a minute. James Huntley, right? He operates a Facebook group. I'm not sure if this is the exact name, but I think it's like Natural and Seeded Hunts. And, you can go on there and post a review. Hey, I recently attended, this Kansas event or whatever. And, but, I've been following that for a long time because they maintain a really good, up-to-date calendar of seeded natural events all around the country. Okay. And recently they've also started to do educational things like, hey, if you're considering putting on a seeded hunt, what's some advice for people to do or not to do? Right. But I would encourage you to go on there and check it out. But I went to this one it was just across the Wisconsin border in northern Illinois. And it was at an 80-year-old scout camp that the organizer said had never been detected. And they offered camping, right? A couple meals were included. There were also 2 seeded events. A seeded event is where they will place certain items. In this case, there were silver coins, other old coins, in or on top of the ground. There was a nighttime event and even like a competition hunt. And boy, I'll tell you what, these guys did a really good job putting that together. And what was really cool too is some of the organizers from other hunts, a few of which I've attended, I know were there. So there's a community there where they try to learn from one another. They try to help one another. But anyway, I went to that, and there were a few other YouTubers there as well. Meryl from Digging NYC was there, KG and Ringy, and I know you have a wide range of people attending those things. Oh, and plenty of vendors were there supporting stuff. So we all found stuff during the natural hunt, the seeded hunt. The vendors were very generous in terms of prizes that you could win via some raffles. But there's this one out west, Rush to something that, what's it called? Rush to the Rockies. I have yet to attend that one. But my understanding is it might be back in 25. Is that right?
Rush to the Rockies.
RR. But
Rush to the Rockies with Rob Rizzo.
Are we going to see that again in 25?
Rob Rizzo and Relics Radio.
Yeah, you absolutely will see that again in 2025. We do them around June here in the beautiful Rocky Mountains. We didn't do one this year. We lost our spot. We lost the place we usually like to do it. I actually heard the other day that we're choosing a new spot now because a lot of people, spoke about how difficult it was. We hold them at 8,500 feet above sea level, and we do them on sort of a sloping mountain, a beautiful Rocky Mountain, park property, Denver County Parks, and it's absolutely breathtakingly beautiful, but that was a little difficult for some people. So we're going to find a little bit more level ground, wider area. And I hate to leave that area. That place we held it at was absolutely stunning, but they have another spot they're looking at, and it'll be just as breathtaking, but a little easier to traverse for sure. Let me see. You mentioned something I was going to ask you. So of all these permissions you've gotten, Rob, what do you think your best permission scored is? Thinking about all the times you've been detecting, do you have one permission that stands out where you're just like, not only was it something you wanted to get, but you connected with the landowner so well, or just some story about it?
Okay, well, I mentioned probably the one already, the Little House on the Prairie one, but I'll tell you, and it's probably might not be the answer you would expect, but this summer, so I obtained a permission for a home site. Found all kind of great stuff there. Invited my buddies there, but I got a referral to his neighbor down the road, and that gentleman's name was Dave. And Dave was, I think, in his mid 80s. Was still very active. He would drive around this farmette in his little ATV, and I found some great stuff. But I'll tell you, I could just tell, he was so interested in the history and everything. But I ended up, kind of spending the afternoon with him because honestly, I could tell he was kind of lonely, And I found something I wasn't looking for, and I had a wonderful time. The guy invited me in his house. He fed me lunch. He showed me all kind of his wife's deceased, and he had all these beautiful quilts, and he took me out and showed me his bees and stuff. I got a bunch I can tell you about in terms of this Laura Ingalls Wilder thing. I also detected this, this old monastery that one of my buddies invited me to. I got a bunch of those, but this was kind of cool because of the human aspect.
Yeah.
And I benefited, and I went back a second time, and there's one. He was telling me the story. He raised two boys, both of whom are older now. But at one point, the one boy was studying to be a carpenter, and they got into an argument with one another. So he buried the brother's hammer, and it's always been this point of contention. So in the fall, in a couple weeks, when the brush is down, I'm going to go back and try to find this hammer.
Find a hammer.
But I'll just tell you one other quick story too. This is kind of fun. So I get a call or an email one day, and it's the producer of the Wisconsin Public Radio show called The Morning Show. And you've heard public radio. You have your version of the
Yeah.
And it says, hey, we're going to do an episode on metal detecting. I'm going to like you, and there's another individual, a guy by the name of Jim Winter. He's called the Driftless Digger here. So they invited us both to be on this hour-and-a-half show. And so we had a couple phone calls and so on. And after the second call, it ended. I was feeling pretty good. I'm like, wow, my channel's getting some recognition here. This is. And so I asked this woman. I said, Mackenzie, I think was her name. And I said, can I ask, how did you find me? And she said, well, you sent me a letter. I said, really? You got one of my letters? I said, oh, that's awesome. I said, so can I come, can we set up a date where I can come out and metal detect your house? And she said, you already did. You and that guy, Bruce, came out, a couple months ago. And I'm like, I didn't make the connection between, I think when we were there on premise, she introduced herself as Mac, but in the email and everything, it was Mackenzie. Sure. What are the odds that I find this old house, the owner of which just so happened to be the producer of Wisconsin Public Radio? Okay. And oh my gosh, it was a wonderful show. And guess what? We got a bunch of permissions from it too.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story. I can imagine that happening, I can imagine it happening. Who would have thought it would, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hey, I got one. I just want a quick thing. You keep mentioning Little House on the Prairie, and I wanted to just share this with you guys. Hersha Parody had passed away last year. She was the school teacher on Little House on the Prairie. This is actually my best friend. I have known literally. He's 2 weeks older than I am. We grew up literally from day one together. This is his aunt. So I grew up knowing Hersha Parody and things like that. But you just mentioned that, and just thought I'd share that real quick. But she passed away last year, and I talked to the family and stuff about it and everything. But you just mentioned Little House on the Prairie, and I'm like, wow, there's a connection there. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, me too, man. My mind was going.
What's interesting is those books didn't really become popular until sometime after the author had died. Mm-hmm. And the location of that actual house, Little House in the Big Woods, was kind of lost to the community. So they actually did some research of their own and finally, found where it was. The original homestead, the log cabin, was demolished, but they've reconstructed it. and it's actually placed, probably about 80 yards away from where this new one, this tourist attraction, is from the original one for safety reasons. It was too close to the new road. But where was I going with this? Oh, so, I'm really excited. I tell everybody about this hunt, and my oldest friend that I have I went to grade school with her. She happened to be a big fan of everything and anything Laura Ingalls Wilder. She was actually supposed to come that weekend and, be kind of our groupie and bring us water and all that stuff. And sadly, her mother became ill and she couldn't come. So, as the finds were coming in, I'm always thinking about, like, what kind of video am I going to make? I let the experience, you guys probably do the same thing. The finds dictate what I'm going to do. But as I got home and, I found this spoon that was obviously a cooking spoon. We found a bullet, a pair of suspender clips that they write about that the girls gave Pa as a Christmas gift, an Indian head penny that was a Christmas penny they talk about in the story. Well, I asked my good friend if she would. So what I ended up doing when I in my video, and if you watch any of my videos, give this one a watch. But I tell, here's what I found. And then we actually read a few paragraphs from Laura Ingalls Wilder. And my friend who couldn't be there that day, she's the voice of Laura Ingalls Wilder in my video. So she got to be part of the experience.
Oh, wow.
After all.
That's cool.
Do you remember the title of that video?
I think Laura Ingalls Wilder. Laura Ingalls Wilder Homestead. I've got a couple hundred videos up there. Sorry.
I put you on the spot.
You did. But the other interesting thing that we found there too were these incredible Model T Ford hubcaps. That as we were bringing the stuff in, showing it to the museum curator, the gentleman who was her assistant, he just fell in love with those. We ended up, sharing those with him too. But I'll tell you guys, it's interesting, and I'd kind of be curious what you guys, what do you do with the items you find? Are you in the category of you have a room with several displays? I'd kind of be curious what you and the folks on the chat do. I think I do something a little different with them, but I'd love to hear what you guys do with your finds.
Go ahead,
Tony. I'm making a banner here to put up. I try and keep a lot of my finds. Obviously, when you have really good landowners and permissions, that absolutely means the world to me, and I cherish those permissions for them saying yes. And you gotta read the room. And if there's something, you're offering up finds to them, if there's something that really intrigued by, please give it to those landowners. Generally, I like to document it with a video. And now I started actually making, if it's a significant site or I find actually something pretty darn good, I actually make a shadow box specifically for that site. Not to mix up, finds, I found 600 bullets. I don't know where each bullet was found, but if I have a shadow box that says it was found at this military site, it really takes me back as I can go back and look through it. So I like to display them, do a lot of, I can put them over here in the cabinet, but I think sharing them on social media is also your display box. You're showing it out there to everybody else too, so that they can experience it and enjoy it. I know that I have a lot of interaction with a lot of people that are in the chat too on social media, and it's like, oh wow, that's awesome. I found something similar to that at this type of site. We kind of have a connection and share everything like that. So that's what I do with mine.
How about you, Ken?
Yeah, all my finds are back there in that drawer system back there. I haven't displayed them yet. I do. My mom recently passed away, and I took her curio cabinet, and I'm going to use that to display my finds. It's sitting outside my studio here, right here, and I'll get around to that. Everything's kept in a little box, so I know. Here's what's cool is like I'll be like, oh, where'd that bullet come from? But then I'll find the suspender clip that's in that little box. I'll go, oh yeah, that was the time that we did this and we did that. So that's how I sort of remember what everything's from. Sometimes I'll label it or throw a piece of paper in there, but I really enjoy sharing them on social media, especially if it's
Hmm.
stuff I don't know. I mean, just yesterday, David, this week, I had an experience where I had found this little saddle mount and searched for it and couldn't find anything on the internet about it, what it was, where it came from, and then bam, I found one image of it that was from a Kentucky metal detecting group and a blog, and he found one in 2012.
Hmm.
And he researched it and he knew all the information on it. So bam, there you go. I learned about it, right?
Hmm.
So I sent him a picture of it. We connected now. He just put a new post on his group and he's just like 2,500 miles away. Two of these things were found from the Isle of Man. Like, what were they doing in his neck of the woods versus my neck of the woods? You know what I mean? So, yeah. What do you do, Rob?
Well, interesting because there's some similarities. I mean, I kind of like Tony. First of all, I mean, for me, the find is the most exciting thing. The moment, the find, and I do like capturing that. If not on video,
Hmm.
still picture, whatever. And if it's something unique, what first thing I want to say is, I enjoy learning about it and
Yeah.
researching it using groups like ID.me or Google Search Lens or whatever. I've actually, over the last several years, I probably have, I don't know, 150 of these little things I create. It's kind of a meme, and it says, "Hey, did you know? Did you know that the Buffalo nickel was with the bison on the back? It was the first U.S. coin to have an animal other than the eagle. Up to then, the only thing, So I'll share because I actually like to share what I'm learning with others.
Hmm.
I do like to keep some of my finds. I'll do the shadow box thing because lately I've been trying to speak at different venues, historical societies. Just had an invite. I think it was in April. I spoke at the Lincoln Heritage Museum down in Lincoln, Illinois. So it's nice to have some displays to take as you're telling the story and stuff. But I'm probably more generous than many in terms of like, I tell the property owner, hey, most people share their finds with me, but it's up to you. And at the end of the day, I mean, I love Ceded Liberty coins, but I mean, I don't mind if they keep that. But here's what I do that I think is unique. And I'll describe this for the people that aren't on the video but are listening through the podcast. But the last couple of years, I've put together these coffee table books. Okay.
Awesome.
And there's several companies you can do this through. I happen to use a company called Snapfish. Their software is all cloud-based. You can, before you ever pay anything, you can load everything up, your photos. And I'll tell you, Snapfish drops a couple coupons over the course of the year that are 70% off. This book I'm going to show you only cost me $24 to have printed up.
Wow.
But extremely high quality.
Wow.
And so what I'm doing in here, right? Because even if you have a nice display, physical display, if you're not there to talk about it, to tell the story doesn't get told. So what's kind of cool with this is you can add text. If you have something unique about that particular item, you can add something in here. But these things will be around long after I am. And if I have somebody come by and I'm not here to tell the story, they do it for me. And I'm showing something here again for those listening in the podcast.
Ooh.
Probably my best find ever. I'm showing a 1604 James I hammered gold coin. And for Georgia, buddy, you've been on this field. This is Mary's. This is Mary's field in Colchester, England.
Yeah.
Talk about a needle in a haystack. It was a potato field that particular year. But anyway, a different way. And oh, by the way, I use these when I door knock. So this is also, hey, by the way, this is what I do, and that kind of a thing as well.
Perfect.
Wow. I tell you, I've made those books with my wife about certain times. Like we went on a trip to Utah.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The whole book was just that, this was our first trip together when we first met, and we can look back at the history. Grandkids come over and they pull out that book off the shelf. They sit down and they look through it. I never thought about relating that to metal detecting. And that is amazing.
I've kind of fallen into the habit. I'm doing them I'm doing one every year.
Right.
And oh my gosh, after you do this for a while, you kind of forget the stuff that you found. And again, I'm just showing a picture. This is what I mean by these little did you know did you know things. But yeah, it's really fun. It's different. It's unique, and it's not necessarily in place of a physical display case, but kind of like in addition to.
Yeah. Hey, Rob, real quick, I'm actually going to share your Facebook page with all your Did You Know, just to give people a little peek.
Yeah.
You okay with that?
You can do that. And by the way, I have a video on this too, of how to do it. And I think I actually display show the software and everything.
That's really cool. Here, real quick, this is Did You Know? So can you see that? Yeah. There's quite a bit going on there. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
They're fun. They're fun little things to share and pass around and post. And again, it's not a lot of people are into the videos. That's fine.
Right.
Just a picture, just something fun to do. But so anyway, think about that. And again, what's really nice, keep your eye out for those coupons, because I mean, for $24,
right.
I'll order a couple of them, right?
Yeah, they're high quality. You get gloss pages, hardbound cover on it, and what I realize, you personalize it. Like, you can write on there whatever you want. You can arrange it, design it however you want it. They do have templates and things like that. But what an awesome idea for metal detecting. That's great.
And I do think you touched on this, Tony. But I'm looking at the comments on here. Tim, I think, is or Thin Blue Diggers. To make he mentions he'll sometimes make a small shadow box,
right,
and present it to the homeowner. My buddy Jeff does that quite a bit. And you and I collaborated on a video. We talk about permissions, do's and don'ts.
Yep.
And one of the, I think, important things is to somehow, whether you find anything nice or not, is to thank that landowner in some. I mean, take them a jar of jelly or something.
Right.
Some donuts, something.
Yeah. Ken and I have talked about that. You stop down at the corner and pick up a bushel of peaches or something and just drop it off to them. Something like that.
Go lay down.
It goes far.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you weren't talking to me, Ken?
Did you hear that?
Oh, I thought he was telling. That's what you say to the landowner. Go lay down.
Oh, did you hear that? I'm trying to tell my dog. My dog's over
there. I haven't tried that, Ken. I'm going to have to give that one a try.
Go lay down. That's what you tell him. Go lay down and let me detect your yard. Sorry, I thought I pressed mute. That didn't work.
We are professionals. Do not try this at home.
Yeah, we've done that, though. We've grabbed bags of oranges, like Tony said, and taken them by. And what's the coolest is when you find landowners that are totally into the history. You know what I mean? And totally into it, to where they sometimes know more than you do. You've done all this research, but all of a sudden they start blowing you away.
Oh my gosh, this recently. So the other thing I would encourage people to try, okay, after this public radio episode and had some really nice finds the last couple of months, I wrote to my local newspaper, okay, and said, hey, and I just kind of recapped. I said, let me know if you guys are interested in telling the story about some of this stuff, right? Well, and again, I'm not boasting, but I'm sharing this for permissions, but I had a full page spread, this newspaper article. I mean, front page, there's a whole nother full page inside. And I had a couple people call me from that. One of whom, probably about 7 miles away from me, he calls me, said, hey, I think I got a property you might be interested in. So we talk a little bit. He gives me the address. I invite one of my buddies. We go out. And it turns out the original log cabin that his family built and settled in the 1840s is still there.
I've got goosebumps.
Never detected. Again, it's probably 6 or 7 videos ago on my page. You'll see it. And Jeff, who's been on your show, Klajorian, I invited him. I think Bruce came there with me, but Jeff popped a large cent. I found this incredible token from what at the time they called the Milwaukee Carnival. It was the precursor to what's now known as Summerfest. It's the largest musical festival in the United States. And, he was telling me all the history of when his family settled and what they did and why now he lives a mile down the road. But again, that came from just doing a few things differently. The permission came from, but yeah, absolutely. And he was educating me, but at the same time, we'll sometimes go there with some printouts from a plat map, historic aerials and stuff. They're interested in the history of this property too. And yeah,
Sure.
they often do have a lot to share.
Yeah, I wanted to show you guys this real quick. Ken and I went out to a site. Let's see here, and it was for the what was it? The Civil Conservation Corps or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they had rebuilt. There's a town out east that was destroyed by a flood, and the Civil Conservation Corps came out, rebuilt the city, bridges, and all that kind of stuff. We went out to this site, and the homeowner, the landowner, was like, "Yeah, go ahead, go back there and stuff. No big freaking deal."
Yeah.
We found, I don't know how many of these buttons. So these are they say U.S. Army on them, and these were off of the uniforms that were issued to these the Corps that worked and stuff like that. We found handfuls upon handfuls. I actually made this for myself, but I also made one for the landowner and had so many buttons and took it back to them. And I'm like, and Ken feels the same exact way here. This belongs on your property. This is your history of, your family that's been here for 100 years. You should have that here. It's a great conversation piece for you personally to have here. And a lot of people are very, very appreciative. This thing you can buy. I think I bought 20 of these off Amazon for like next to nothing. It's just made out of plastic, but it opens up. It's kind of like a membrane. You just put the find in there, close it up, put it in this little display, and talk about that on a mantle. Man, that landowner's just going to absolutely
conversation
love you for that.
Yeah, I bet you there's probably about 80% of the people in chat or watching this later, right? How many times have you found something and you've turned it over either willingly or unwillingly to the property owner, and then you've hopped on eBay and said, I'm going to buy one just so I have it in my collection? I know I have done that quite a bit.
Yeah. We were detecting another property, and we were in their cow pasture, and their family had owned it for like 3 generations, way back in the early 19th century. And it was great. We started finding all these cow tags, and the cow tags had their last name on it. And we were finding all these cow tags, and so we met the landowner at the end. She was so interested. She wanted to know what we found. She was this really old lady, sweet old lady. And we're sitting there talking to her, and she just was interested in every little bit we found. And she's looking at the cow tags, and she's like, oh, yeah, well, that's when we used to only put our last name on it. And then it had our first initial and the last name. Like, she knew the whole history. And I had found one, and it said Randall and then her last name. And I said, Mary or whatever her name was, I said, who's Randall? And she goes, that's my great grandfather. And I go, here you go, and she was like, oh my gosh,
Chills.
Yeah.
Chills.
And it just, she was so appreciative, and her daughter was there sitting in on it too. And she became a fan of ours immediately, because we were exciting her mother so much.
Yeah. And you get more permissions that way. I have a video, it's called Sundown Cottage, somewhere in the title. You can search for it. And went there, found all kind of cool stuff. But I do pride myself. I like to do I spend time on my editing, on different angled shots and the transitions and stuff like that. And so anyway, I told you why I did that, to show my fellow detectorists, my grandkids, and so on. But anyway, after I did the hunt and I found several stuff, while I was there that day, the guy came out and gave me a bunch of documents about the history of the house and so on. And I really didn't read them until I left. And it turns out that there was a story of when this gentleman, who at the time was 74, but when he was in his 50s, there was a knock on the door. And there was this very elderly gentleman and his young daughter. And they asked him, they said, hey, my grandfather used to live here when he was a very young boy during the Depression. They lost the home. His dad ran the local bank, and just like people sometimes walk away from mortgages today, that's what he did. They had to literally leave the house. He'd never been back, and he brought all kind of old documents and pictures of the house. They had named it Sundown Cottage, and I incorporated that whole story into the video. Okay, So I post the video and I send the homeowner a link and I thank him. And he called me up the next day and he said, Rob, and I don't know where this came from. He goes, that video was Hollywood. Hollywood. That's what he kept saying. Hollywood. And he said, it made me cry. It made me cry. And I was really humbled and I appreciated it. But after I thought about it, part of what you can do, you're archiving, you're telling the story of the property.
Yeah.
And these homeowners, and by the way, they're asking, what do I owe you for that? I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'd pay you. I would pay you.
Yeah.
But if you are so inclined to take some pictures, even do something like the shadow box or make a video, there's value there beyond what you might think.
Awesome.
Yeah. We kind of touched on, there was a question earlier, right, from Tyler Peterson. He said, how do you handle owners that want to keep all the fines? Is there any middle ground or good middle ground or compromise you can do? And we've kind of touched on that. I try to set expectations up front, but because otherwise you can't blame them if they're guessing. But it's real simple. I often say, hey, most people, will share the fines with me. You do get to decide if there's anything of high value. Of course, I'm going to turn that over. And I say, I do some speaking engagements. So I do like to take a couple of things just to add to my collection and so on. I'll tell you, despite that, you're going to have the person that wants everything. But once I do that, they're more than willing to kind of split and share.
So set the expectations out ahead of time.
Totally.
Yeah. Totally. That's a great tip.
I don't know why we're still talking about permissions. We're going to get on the UK here in a little bit, but they when somebody challenges you, like you were talking about that guy's girlfriend, well, what if maybe he finds something, he keeps it, and we always talk about, we thank the landowner. We're like, look, without the generosity of you allowing us to do our hobby, we just couldn't do it. I mean, you're allowing us to enjoy and have this passion for this hobby. Without you, we couldn't do it. And so if they ever bring that up, we're like, we wouldn't be able to do this if we were sort of unscrupulous people that did things the wrong way. We would quickly run out of people, to give us permissions. And so, part of that is the trust. You got to follow that up with showing them you're doing things the right way. But
and I'm not gonna. I mean, listen, everybody should know what the code of ethics is. What it says.
Absolutely.
Fill your holes. Show up. Dressed appropriately. All that stuff. Right. That's table stakes, I think. And again, if you can do something to distinguish yourself, I will just say with the approach I use, there is maybe one downfall, and I'm talking about the going on Realtor.com and researching. The one risk is that new homeowner. They're really excited about the history and everything, but they don't know if that house has been detected.
Sure.
Or what the landscape.
They don't know the history of it. Yeah.
They really don't. And I've had a few strikeouts where, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be great. And nothing. But I'm going to say that's very rare.
Yeah.
Let's talk about ring returns. We'll make a quick turn. Ring returns. How involved are you with ring returns? Are you part of Ring Finders and
I'm not part of Ring Finders. I have a hobby card. I don't have one in front of me. It's a business card, and I will pin those up occasionally in places. And on a couple versions ago of that, I would, I'll help you find property stakes or rings, that kind of a thing. But I don't kind of push it too much. Now, with some of these recent, like the radio show and that newspaper article, I've had a few, and boy, they're phenomenal. And you'll see some videos of mine where, people cry, It just, this one gentleman called me up and he said, he was in his 80s. And he said, I'm wondering if you can help me. I don't really do much. I drive into my driveway and I go from my car to the house, and I go from my house to my workshop. And so, he goes, sometime in March, I lost my ring. So it's cold in Wisconsin in March still. And I asked him some questions and so on. And he did confess there was one day he was cleaning out the gutters in his garage. Now, he wasn't up on a ladder. The ground was sloped. So he was able to just walk along. And I started my detecting there, and I found his gold ring in like 20 minutes. And he happened to be he was out there and he was talking to his daughter on the phone, and I bring it up to him and he just burst into tears. Well, I found out later, he told me, he goes, I hadn't even told my wife that I lost it. And she's suffering from some dementia, and, his wife's ill, and he probably doesn't know what the future holds for his wife. So here, he's, going to possibly lose his wife at some point in the future. And he lost his ring. Well, we found his ring, and, I'm going to tell you what, makes all of it worthwhile. I just had one though last week. A gentleman called me out, and I had like zero luck. It was proverbial needle in a haystack and so on. But I do it, and if I can, and I've had a few times where people have, like, where I found their phone or something and they want to give me cash, and I said, no, pay it forward. If you want to donate to Tunnel to Towers, do that. But I know quite a few people are much, much more active than me. But I don't know. I think a lot of those people are also, I don't know, maybe they're coastal people. I don't know. What do you guys do a lot of that?
I used to belong to ring finders, and we have quite a few here. Not a few, but we have somebody. He's the president of our metal detecting club. He's been doing it for years and years and years, and he's the preeminent ring finder in this area. He's got like 500 finds or something like that, and he is the guy. And I took this little small area up north, and so I only done a couple. I appeared on a radio show like you did, though, and I kind of put it out that I find rings, and if somebody wants to contact me, I'll help find the rings. And somebody contacted me, and her husband was in Vietnam, and he got shot down. He was a helicopter pilot, and he had this bracelet made out of his rotor chain. And they had lost it like 15 years ago, and she heard me on the radio and wanted me to come out and find it. And I ended up bringing Tony in on that, and we never found it. She does not sure. He said he was laying paver stones 15 years ago. We think they're under the paver stones, but it was not there. We hit that yard as hard as you can hit it with multiple days. And they weren't even sure he lost it there, but we sure wanted to. We sure wanted to.
I mean, I personally take some joy, that Manassas hunt I was telling you about, the Union Army button and the Type 2 Williams cleaner bullet. The owner requested those. We left those with the owner. Anytime there's a little bit of family history. I think it was Bruce who we were just detecting this house earlier this year, and they found this. It wasn't terribly valuable, but it was one of those things remembered bracelets. You would go to the mall. Do you remember what a mall is, by the way? Does anybody know what that is? Remember those things called the mall?
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, it was this historically ancient thing you would go to, and they would engrave, Well, I think she got this when she was like, I don't know, 12 or something. And so it was so hilarious because the father, he took it into the wife, and the wife knew right away what it was. She must have got it, for a birthday present. And I think the daughter now's in her 40s or something. So the dad called the daughter up and said, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what we found. And he said, by the way, you're grounded.
Great. Hey, Rob, listen, we only got like 12 minutes late. We haven't even talked about UK yet. Now, somebody told me through the grapevine that you enjoy every now and then going to England, going over to the UK. So how many times have you been over to the UK?
I have been over there 4 times, and I'm already signed up for 25, and in 26, I've got 2 trips. I'll tell you, it's incredible. All the history is awesome, but I just came back from a 2-week trip, 12 full days of metal detecting. This is up in the Norfolk region, more specifically the town of near Norwich. And I booked this trip through norfolkmetaldetecting.com, Norfolk Metal Detecting Tours, or norfolkmetaldetecting.com, one of those 2 things. I've previously had been down in Colchester, and I'll talk about that for a moment. But every day of the 12 days, just incredible stuff found by me and my mates over there. We're talking Viking relics, Saxon, Celtic. There were 3 people in my group that found these things called Celtic staters. They're about the size. It was a full stater, the size of a quarter, and these often range from like 50 to 100 BC, and they are beautiful, beautiful cast coins. But on this particular trip, the big thing over there, a lot of people like to find, you find all kind of old buttons and copper coins, brooches, some Roman stuff. But I found 13 hammered coins. These are not milled. They would literally take a planchet and strike them one at a time. They're paper thin. If you're detecting in the U.S., these are like in the signal ranges. You would say, oh, yeah, foil. You wouldn't dig all the signals over there. And just incredibly deep and rich history, right? But the other trips that I went on were in the Colchester region. So Norfolk is up in the Northeast, probably more densely populated, and certainly some old stuff. But Colchester's down in the Southeast. It actually it used to be known as Cullodenham. It was Britain's first city. And that's where I found my gold hammered James I crown is what it would have been called. But I'll just tell you shortly, and I'll stop here. And I was actually, I might have been listening to, I think it was you guys and my good friend Tim Blank, the Old Diggers, what he goes by, was talking about one of his recent trips, and he found something that's like the size of a deviled egg. It's a gold ingot, and I was just like, "You got to be kidding me!" So I called him up and said, "Tim, tell me everything about this experience." And I am hooked. There's only one. They're not cheap. These tours, you're paying for airfare and hotel and everything. But there is a downside. I mean, it does. It's a little hard to get excited about a wheat penny when you're digging coins from the 12th century. These hammered coins were 12, 13. It's just incredible. But if anyone's interested, there's probably about 3 or 4 groups that offer. Colchester's one, Norfolk Metal Detecting. There's another one, I think it's called Iceni Metal Detecting Tours. American Diggers is affiliated with one that's a little shorter of a trip. That's coming up. But if you can at all afford it, and if you could think about it, and you get a chance, I went over there and did some mudlarking in the Thames River beforehand too. And again, I have some more information in my videos. Check them out if you're interested. But I'll just end by saying, awesome experience, and the finds will blow your mind.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree?
It gets you a little jaded though, right? Because like you had mentioned,
completely jaded.
And that's why it does. It forced me to up my game. It forced me. I thought, you can find old stuff in parks, right? But I thought, it's kind of like real estate, right? It's location. You want to go to the old places. So it forced me to up my U.S. permission game.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's not a lot of junk in England either. You're on these fields, and you dig everything basically because you never know what you're going to pull up. Iron Age, Bronze Age.
I see a
II.
question here. I'll try to answer this real quickly. So, can you bring this stuff back? It depends. There is something called the Treasure Act, and I believe if there's anything over 300 years of age, you have to report it, and it's reported. These people that organize the trip do this on your behalf. It's reported to someone called a fines liaison officer, a FLO. And these people, on behalf of all the different museums, the British Museum and the regional museums, they'll determine if they want to buy that on behalf of the museum and place it in the museum. So I was able to bring that gold coin back because guess what? They have hundreds of gold coins. It was in good shape, but not the best shape. One of my friends, Connecticut Todd Yerkes, on my last trip with him in Colchester, he found this incredibly beautiful posy ring with enamel and gold, and there are 2 museums fighting over that, and he will never see it, sadly. But if they do claim it, you're offered some monetary compensation and stuff. But here's the thing. I mean, it's just like what we were talking about here. If it's something of, remember, they're letting us go on their land and detect. Something of super value, probably want it to be in a museum so everybody can enjoy it.
Absolutely.
When we were talking to Mike, Preacher Digger, at the club meeting the other day, he digs a lot of water, beaches. It's just what he does all summer long, and he finds tons of gold rings and necklaces and bracelets, and he tries to get them back to the land, to the owners. But if he doesn't, he ends up selling that. and it finances his trips to England.
Yeah.
He told us that, and it was
Yeah.
like, that can happen if
Yeah.
if you're near water, you find a lot of gold rings, or parks, you find a lot of gold rings. Yeah, it's expensive. It can be.
I'll tell you, gold. I mean, gold was over $2,600 an ounce the other day and stuff. I would tell you, if you're going to do that, and I don't think I've ever sold anything. Not that I won't, but I did one time sell a gold coin out of my collection. And, just I was out of curiosity, I went to like the local jeweler. We buy gold and stuff. Shop around. I found that there are a couple big outfits online that almost give you pretty much spot. Whereas a lot of these local shops, I mean, nothing against it, they got to make money, right? You might not get the value you think, but you want to save up and shop around. But boy, I'll tell you, if you get a chance to go on one of those things, it's incredible.
Agreed. I've been once. It absolutely changed my life, my outlook on metal detecting, my outlook on history. What an absolute experience. And one of our friends is over there right now. And of course she's texting us, not during the show here, but early in the morning, because it's later over there, but texting us the things that she's finding. And it's just, it starts to build that itch again. Once you've been there, it's really tough to get away from it.
And I'll say this too. I know some of the metal detecting manufacturers and stuff, and it helped me better understand a little bit who they're building these machines for. They're not just building them for us. In their fields, the things they're finding over there, the reason why some of these, are very light, the reason why that when you go on one of these trips, you're detecting from like 8 o'clock or 8:30 pretty much till sundown.
Yeah.
Okay. How many of us really do that here? So battery life is really important over there. But you just realize there's such a multitude of different conditions, and it helps explain some of the variability in these detectors we have on the market.
Yep.
Yeah. And, you're right. You go on these trips over there, you do get your money's worth, because you're going to detect a lot. So physically be ready for it.
Yeah.
I know that it was a shock the first time I went. 7 days of dark to dark detecting.
Really talk to people that have gone and ask about the equipment. Absolutely, you do need to be in shape. And I just also wanted to say, so the stuff you can bring back, there is a delay. So often that process I was talking about with the Treasure Act, it sometimes can take like anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and you either have to have that stuff shipped to you or you pick it up on your next trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of our friends do that. They just make it a yearly thing. They go pick up the finds, and then they find some more stuff, wait another year, and pick it up again the following.
But if you are remotely interested, you can do your own research. Email me at thehistorydigger@gmail.com. But my advice is you need to literally plan a year to 18 months ahead, because they're sold out. That's how much demand versus supply exists on these trips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And GA Buddy in the chat right now, he does trips to the Colchester. I've been with him to Colchester. So you can reach out to him too. If you want to try to get on a trip, you can reach out to him and he can hook you up too. Or Norfolk's got some great trips.
I've heard Buddy runs a nice trip. I've had some friends of mine go with him.
Yeah, it's great.
Buddy was good.
Rob, check it out, man. You've been a great guest. I knew you would be. And we've really appreciated you being here. We'll give you kind of last say here, and we'll put you down the green room. We always ask people to hang in after we close the show, just to say our goodbyes off the air. Are you able to do that tonight?
Yeah, I'll hang. Thank you both. Appreciate everything you do. And thanks everybody for taking the time to join this. I'll just say 2 things. I mentioned this. Hey, if you are blessed and you've got an opportunity, right, a permission, bring a friend along. You might be surprised how it could come back to you. Okay. And it's kind of the fun thing about this hobby. But I'll just sign off by wishing everybody good luck and happy digging.
Thank you, Rob. Be with you in a minute. I knew it.
We needed 3 hours.
We did. We're going to have him back on too, man. All these guests we have on, they're such great guests. Yeah. We only scratched the surface. I mean, we talked to him for hours.
He's just getting into stuff.
Yeah. If we ever went to an event and he was there, it'd be over. Like we would, I think, and what he said is so true, man. Getting out with buddies and stuff. I mean, you and I didn't get that much of an opportunity to kind of go out and dig a lot on our own. We kind of met each other real early on in our digging careers, if you would. And we kind of don't know very much any difference, So
No, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Just understanding and sharing the passion. I know how I feel about stuff, and I know you share the same thing.
Yeah.
And just going out, if I find nothing that whole day, and you find 3 silvers that are seated, and just on and on and on, I tell you what, I probably would be more excited than you are, just because I just know how I am.
Yeah.
Sharing it with somebody is just it adds to that entire experience of history, but also friendship.
We talk about it all the time, right? Like you found those cross sabers. You FaceTime me at work, and you got this look in your face, like almost like you're going to cry, and you're just like, look what we found. Is we were trying to find those items at this field.
Yep.
We knew we would, and all of a sudden you found it. I was at work, you were out detecting, and it was just like I was just as excited as you were sitting in my office. Matter of fact, I tell people I was hooping and hollering, and people were coming in and checking in my office, like, "Are you all right?" And I was just like, "That's so awesome, man!" It's a lot of fun. So
yeah, Rob's right. Take a buddy, introduce them to the hobby, or just share it with people who have the same passion and interest.
Yeah. What do you got going on?
Not much. I think you and I are we're making some plans to go hunting soon with a couple different high profile situations. So make sure that you guys are staying tuned to 5280 Adventures on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Post everything out there and maybe show you some cool finds. Make some comments. I love interacting with everybody and kind of sharing the hobby. And reach out to me if you guys have questions or you find something cool. Let me know. I love all this stuff. So appreciate all the support, guys.
Excellent. Talk to you in a bit. Hey, everyone, I want to thank you for listening to us and watching us on Relics Radio. Tell you what, go check out Rob's channel, The History Digger. The links are right down below to his Facebook, his Instagram, and his YouTube. Go check it out. He puts out so much cool content between those little blurbs of information, little stories about finds. You're going to be entertained if you go over there. He does a great job editing. Go over there and check him out, The History Digger. He'll appreciate it. Throw him a little chat. Say, saw you on Relics Radio or heard you on the Relics Radio podcast. Over here to check you out. I'm sure he'll appreciate it. But you can find me anywhere on social media at adventuresindirt. Would love you to come over and check out what I'm doing over there. But everyone, have a great week. Be careful if you go out this weekend, but have a blast. And I'll see you here next Thursday.
Thank you so much for listening to Relics Radio. We will see you back here next week for another exciting guest. Until then, get out and dig it all.